I've been able to travel all of Australia in a semi sort of professional lifestyle, and just people that I've met has been the best thing. And at the end of the day, no one cares what level of footy that you play once you retire. They just care about how you treated them.
They want to be there for community. They want to be there for the people that they meet. It's not always about reaching the next level.
The players are just humans at the end of the day, and they're going out there for fun and for enjoyment. Just take it easy on Rob. Like, he tries so hard. Give him a little bit of a rest. And I think that was probably a moment where Dad was like, yeah, maybe I am pretty hard and tough on him.
Welcome to 4TG.
Robbie Turnbull, welcome to the 4TG podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. First virtual guest. Very excited.
Very excited to have you on board. Now, you are an extremely decorated Aussie Rules player, having played in multiple state leagues. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but you've played in the VFL, the Waffle and the NTFL, where I was fortunate enough to meet you.
Yeah, that's right. Grew up in Victoria, so worked my way up to playing some VFL footy at Frankston. And then, COVID hit, moved up to the NT like a lot of us did, and sort of made that home for 2 or 3 years. And then won another crack at a state league and didn't want to go back to cold Melbourne and ended up back here, over here in WA.
So you're clearly chasing the sunshine.
Yeah, definitely. Love the weather.
And now you're sort of coaching and you've sort of come full circle, I guess, with your top tier footballer business, where you're creating such value for footy players at all levels, from skills coaching and your S&C programs to the social media content that you're putting out, where you're sharing reels from footy structures to recovery tips and all the way through to mindset shifts. And it was recently a reel that you released that was extremely raw and vulnerable, which I wanted you to jump on the podcast and talk more about. But it was about the experience you shared with your dad and I guess the pressure that he put on you unintentionally, but from the sidelines, about yelling at you for your performance or umpires, and I guess the negative side effect that had on you as a player and how it's still showing up in your life today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my dad was super passionate, and he loved watching me play, and he obviously saw my potential, and he cared for me. He would drive me everywhere. But also probably went over that line of being a little bit too harsh on me at times. I definitely found that I struggled with wanting to make mistakes as I got higher up the ranks in my footy, because I probably didn't have that support or safety network with Dad all the time. It was always, how can I please him? How can I play? How can I be better? So that I could make Dad happy. And I think, like any son does, you want to make your dad happy. And I think it's really a slippery slope for a lot of parents, is if you are putting so much weight on their performance and how they're going, and the car ride home is dreadful, then it can put a lot of external pressure on that individual as a player. And I think, your parents are just so important for shaping the environment. At the end of the day, they're your number one coach. Like, you spend the most amount of time with them. And so making sure that they are that support network and they're nurturing and they're caring is really important. And I definitely got that from my mum. So I had Dad on one side, mum on the other. But I also thank him for it, because it made me super competitive. Like, I hate losing, which is another sort of, we could go on for that for ages. But, super competitive person. And I do thank him for that, because, being competitive in life is important, particularly when you've got high aspirations and high goals, but it is not everything as well. And I think that's where mum played that role a little bit better than Dad.
Yeah. And I think you're so right. Like, we all know teammates who, if they don't have the best performance, you can hear their parents yelling at them from the sideline, or you do your best to try and reassure them that they didn't play as bad as they thought. And then they get in the car with their parents and they have to be berated for 30 minutes or however long the drive home is. And it doesn't matter what you say at the time or after the game to try and help shape their confidence or build their confidence. If they're being stuck in a car and told how pathetic they played and what they did wrong and all of these types of things, it just really, I guess, rattles their confidence and has a much longer lasting impact on their confidence, both on and off the field. Yeah,
definitely. And like I said in that video that I released, you're eventually going to get to a level, whether it's in life or footy, that mistakes are going to happen all the time. You look at it in the AFL, AFLW, like some of the best mids go under 50% by foot. So that means every second kick they're missing. So if you don't adopt that growth mindset and are able to reset and find a trigger to get your head back in the game, then, and if you dwell on it for too long, then it's really going to impact your performance across not just the whole game, but across like a season. And yeah, so I think it's really important that they shape that environment because they are your number one coach at the end of the day.
Mm. So let's get a little bit more into what sport meant for you in your childhood and your journey, and I guess the lessons it's taught you along the way, but also the setbacks and challenges that you've faced in your footy career.
Yeah, I guess like any young guy growing up, it was just Oz kick with your mates. And I was, from there it was barracking for St Kilda. I used to go to footy with my dad, and it was, pretty much footy all weekend. We were members. We would go down, walk down the footy, then we'd do Oz kick. And so a lot of my life has revolved around football. It was interesting. I was actually listening to your last podcast and how important like detachment is from your own identity to your sport, because like for a lot of my years or a lot of my life, footy has impacted who I am, what I do, and being able to remove yourself from that is so important. And so, I guess the biggest challenge that every football player will inevitably sort of come across, particularly as a young footballer, is the thought of either getting drafted or not getting drafted. I think that's a massive one. And no one really likes to talk about it because we've got this sort of tall poppy syndrome in Australia where it's like, oh, you thought you were going to get drafted, you're no good. But to be honest, like anyone, I do lots of footy clinics now with little kids and they're all under 15 and they all want to play AFL. Why wouldn't you? What a great experience, a full-time job, full-time athlete. But the reality of that is that I think the last time I checked, it was like 0.05% of players will get drafted. And then of those that get drafted, the career is 3 or 4 years. I think it's 2 or 3% to play state league footy. And so what are you going to do with the rest of your life? If your whole identity is around footy and playing sport and getting drafted, I feel like, we as a society haven't really got the measures in place to be able to deal with that. Like you see 19, 20-year-olds dropping out of the sport because they're like, oh, I wasn't good enough, I can't be bothered. And then they give up on what could have been an amazing career at the state and community level. And I think now I'm a little bit older and mature. I have so much to thank from football, like the memories, the people that I've met, the experiences that I've had. I've been able to travel all of Australia in a semi sort of professional lifestyle. And just the people that I've met has been the best thing. And at the end of the day, no one cares what level of footy that you play once you retire. They just care about how you treated them. And I think that relationship with people is the biggest part about footy. It's one big network. And when you can, change your mindset around just performing and getting to the next level and actually just indulging in the relationships that you form with people, I think that's when you can really shift into that positive mindset and really grow as an athlete and as a person.
Definitely. And going back from a younger age, was there always a pressure on you from your dad, or was like, when did you start realizing that perhaps his behavior wasn't just supportive, but it was sort of flirting with that line with almost being a bit too heavy and suffocating?
It was tough. I mean, both of my parents have been divorced twice. So dad actually stopped coming to a lot of my footy games just purely from the logistics of it. And so that's probably when mum started taking me a lot of my talent and state sort of tryouts. And funny enough, mum would just go, how was it? Good in the car. And I'd just get on with playing and in that flow state. And so it wasn't, I guess, the removal of dad from there. He was definitely still watching and would give me feedback. But when he realized that I got to that level where mistakes were going to happen and it is really cutthroat and ruthless, he sort of flipped and it was like, hey, like he needs my support now because he's not going to get that at the clubs or where you're going. You're going to working up that channel is super cutthroat and ruthless. And so if you're not supporting your child there, then you're going to see their confidence sort of drop. And I think that was probably the main point that pivoted, was once I got to a level where I was no longer the best player out on the ground and there was lots of other really good players at a sort of 16, 17-year-old level. I think that's where dad sort of really shifted that mindset because he could see the impact that it was having.
Was there ever a conversation that you sort of had with him about the negative impacts it was having, or was it just more that self-awareness that he eventually came to realize that it's not actually helping you, it's sort of crippling your confidence and probably limiting your potential a little bit at that higher level.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was. I think he was self-aware, but I still remember there was another parent, actually, one of the other coaches, that came up to him at a game where he was getting into me, and I wasn't having a good game, and it was from a lack of effort, actually. But the dad basically, he was the coach at the time. He went up and he was like, "Oh, like, maybe just take it easy on Rob. Like, he tries so hard. Give him a little bit of a rest." And I think that was probably, a moment where dad was like, yeah, maybe I am pretty hard and tough on him. And I definitely found after that moment that another parent or another coach in the space reached out to him, that the behavior started to sort of change. I didn't get it as much. And don't get me wrong, dad was also encouraging from the sidelines. It wasn't just one way, but just that whole pressure of like, on this result, if something goes bad or good, I was going to get a response. It made me start thinking about the response rather than just playing football. And so, that's I think that was probably one of the turning points, is having another coach come up and say something.
And how did the sideline yelling sort of shape the way that you saw yourself as a player? Like, did you ever see yourself playing for him or for you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I reckon I was playing for dad for a lot of my career. It was to make him happy. As I said, both parents divorced, so it was like that was our outlet together, was to enjoy it and to have fun and to play well and be competitive. And so I definitely, attached that side of performance to making dad happy. I think I was for a lot of my career playing for him, which I don't think it's a positive thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so many athletes do. And the problem with parents is that often they weren't given the opportunities that we're given. So they sort of live vicariously through us, and they want the best for us, but they just sometimes don't have the best channels in showing us that support. And it does often take just a coach or a friend or someone just to call out the behavior, just so they know that, there are better ways of supporting your child. And even though they care so deeply, you've really got to realize that it is your child's career. It is their dreams, their aspirations, and maybe they don't want to be the best player on the field. Maybe they are there for the exact reasons that you just said earlier, that they want to be there for community. They want to be there for the people that they meet. It's not always about reaching the next level.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people, probably have that with their parents trying to live vicariously through them. And a lot of the time it is the dad, I find, particularly because they're the ones that have played and they want to see you do well. And to be fair, like, my dad didn't even play much footy. He probably played I think he played one senior game of footy. So it's like I'd already achieved so much more than what he had at the time. Yet he was putting so much pressure on me without probably realizing in the early ages.
How has that pressure followed you into adulthood, both on and off the field? You sort of touched on it earlier, but I'm keen to explore how that's shown up in your professional career or in your personal relationships.
Yeah, definitely found that I didn't want to make mistakes because I knew it would have a negative result. And even to this day, I still, if I miss a kick or I do an error, there is an element in the back of my head that just really gets fixated on it. And I think that pushes into perfectionism, which, as we all know, and you've discussed in previous episodes, is a really hard track. It's an unrealistic track to have. And it wasn't until, I probably matured a lot and was able to coach and develop a growth mindset that I was able to see some progress in those areas because, I was so fixated on making mistakes. And honestly, if you can't, and I'll use an example, actually, like I go to jiu-jitsu now and I just love it. It's a cool sport. But every time I go there, I get tapped out like 5 or 6 times. I get absolutely destroyed. And I love it. And I go there and I'm like, hey, I'm going here and I'm guaranteed to make a mistake. But because I don't care about the sport, I'm just doing it because I like it and it's challenging. I'm having so much fun and enjoyment from learning. And I'm like, but I know I'm going to go there and absolutely suck and I'm going to get tapped out. But somehow I find myself enjoying it so much as opposed to footy, which I care about and I have so much attachment to it because it's been my identity for so long. I think that's the big difference. And when you can sort of step back and see that, that's when you can start to progress from it and being self-aware.
Yeah. And I guess, as you're saying, the only difference between those two sports is the pressure that you apply to yourself in footy. So imagine if you could go back in time to when you were 16 and just look at it from that perspective, that there's zero pressure. You're there to love it, to play it. There will be mistakes, but that's all part of the journey.
Yeah, see ball, get ball. That's what I had a really good coach once just say that to me. That's what I'm good at contest. And so I go back to something simple like that, see ball, get ball, and literally everything else will flow from that. And so, yeah, having a trigger or something that you can pull yourself back to, I think is really important as a player, particularly when you get up those ranks where it's super competitive and ruthless.
So a stat said that amongst 12 to 17-year-olds, that 69% of athletes reported witnessing negative sideline behaviour from their parents. So it's a systematic problem and it's something we probably need to call out more often. So what do you think club levels all the way through to elite levels can instill or sort of create codes of conduct or something along those lines to try and prevent this and knock it on the head?
Yeah, I think firstly it starts with education, right? Talks like this where you can see that the players are just humans at the end of the day, and they're going out there for fun and for enjoyment. I think that's the biggest one, is educating them around that, and educating them particularly around the work that it's taken for them to get to there. You know, a lot of the people will just judge the performance, and it's like, well, I've seen this player 3 nights in the week in the rain doing their skills, trying to get better, and they're still making mistakes. It's like, I feel like, yeah, education firstly, then respect for the work that's being put in. And then I think, like we've touched on today, is having, calling it out when it does happen. Maybe just having a chat with someone and being like, hey, maybe you could have said that something a little bit differently, or maybe you didn't need to say that at all. Because we still want supporters, at the games encouraging, but yeah, got to also toe the line as well, I think.
Now, as a coach yourself, for the parents and coaches listening today, what behaviours do you think actually help kids thrive in sport? And what are signs from crossing over from that supportive nature to almost the controlling and suffocating nature?
Yeah, I think the big one is probably as a coach now, like you come into the quarter time huddle, you can always see whose parent is like circling the back, just trying to have a look at what the message is, what they're doing. And so I feel like even just being around the huddle or around the group can place that pressure, like, oh, mum and dad are watching, like I can see them over there. It just shifts your focus on what you need to be doing. So I actually think supporting from the sidelines where you can't be seen is something that's that I find is probably would really work. For some athletes, they want that care and support there. So it does come back to the individual. But for a lot of athletes, and even as a coach, they just want you to give them short trigger words to help them out on their performance. And that's it. They just want to play. And I think the more we can let those guys and girls play, the better.
I couldn't agree more. And even coaching this year in senior women's footy, I think the biggest thing is let the coach be the coach on the day. And yeah, it's the circling around, quarter time huddles and things. There's so often, they pull the girls aside and then they overwrite what the coach has said and put in their own 2 cents, and it confuses them. But it's just, again, it's the pressure. So back off, let the coaches do their job on the day and just trust.
Yeah, I think trust is a massive one. Hey, trust that they've got, like, all of our coaches have always got the best interest of our girls at heart. And if you don't think that that's true, come down and watch us at training. Like, come and listen into what we have to say in our reviews and end of year meetings. Because, yeah, and I think that's a big one for particularly a male coming into the female space, is building trust with your athletes first. Like, I just sent out a survey actually, and it was care and belief. I wanted to be like rated 1 to 5, and it was like care and belief is the one thing that I want to come into this space and give. And I was able to get sort of like a 4.5 out of 5, and I was so thankful that I was able to build that trust off the back of care and belief.
Absolutely. And just in what you're saying around fathers especially, like the women's game is so different to the men's game, and especially it's different to when your dad, who's 60 odd, played back in the 70s in Div 5. So you've got to sort of also understand that and have that self-awareness that women's game is different, and what you might have worked back then doesn't sort of work now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I still have, your typical sort of 60, 70-year-old supporter come over and he's a male. And he's like, oh, they're not kicking it long down the line, or they're not doing this or that. And it's like, well, yeah, it's just they're not there seeing the progressions, and they're not there seeing that the tactics that you're trying to instill and put in place. And I think for a lot of it, it's growing over the long term. And it's like the kicking distance will come. And then when it comes, then you can open up those different options. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And on the theme of women in sport, what do you think are the unique pressures that young women face in sport today? And why is it almost more important for parents, and especially fathers or male figures, to show up differently for their daughters in sport than they have in previous generations?
Yeah, I think, and you can probably speak to this more than I can, but for a lot of it, particularly in the AFL landscape, you've been told that you can't play AFL, that you can't play sport, or that you're not good at this sport. And so as a male coming across, you really need to make sure that you spend time showing that you're there for the right reasons and that you're building trust, because it's that care and belief. And I think belief is probably the biggest one in the space that we need to continue to instill, is that you are good enough, you can progress with your skills to an elite level, provided that you've got the support network around you. And so if I was, lucky enough to have a daughter one day, it would just be telling her like that I believe in her, that I care for her, and being that nurturing sort of safety network for her. Because I think, like males have, the challenges in life and in footy are everywhere. And I think that's the most important part, is being that sort of safety network and really giving them the belief that they can go on to do good things.
And how do you think you would change from your father to you yourself being a dad one day? What is the core message you would tell your daughter or son about playing sport and why they play it?
Yeah, just enjoy the little things. We don't play forever, and you find that out as you get older. And as I said before, it's not about the awards or the accolades. I mean, you do remember team success. That's really important, but you remember it because you remember the people, and just really enjoying the relationships that you form from sport. I met my partner through sport. I have so much to thank footy for, and it's off the back of the people and the relationships that are formed from that.
Yeah. And if you could sort of sit down with your dad today, as a grown man, having achieved what you already have, what would you tell him about how his behavior sort of negatively affected you there for a while?
Yeah, I'd probably just say take it easy. Like I know that you care, but just let me play. Just let me play. Because when I play, I'm usually pretty good. But when I'm worrying about other stuff, that's when my performance starts to drop. So that would be the biggest one, is just take it easy, rein it in. Love the support, but yeah.
And what would you tell 16-year-old Robbie at the same time?
See ball, get ball. I still reckon it's the best quote I've ever been given. Was my under-18s coach, and he knew that I'd come back from a TAC Cup system where I'd been told I wasn't good enough or I wasn't playing, and I'd hit that bottleneck. And so he would just come back and he would say, see ball, get ball. And he identified that as my trigger. And anytime I do that, I can reset myself. So that's what I would tell my young self: see ball, get ball, just play.
I love it. It just does come back to simplicity, doesn't it? And I think a lot of athletes these days are overcoached. Like at the end of the day, and I've spoken about this in a previous episode, we have so much natural instinct, and the more we get coached, the more opinions that go into our head, the more we overthink things, the more that we sort of undermine our own individual natural talents and ability to act off instinct. And this just gets further perpetuated when we get stat reports and everything else that don't show the whole picture of how you played. And I think it's almost crippling in a way that sometimes less is more in the coaching space.
Definitely. And that's something I've probably struggled with as well as a coach, because I'm trying to provide so much information to try and help these athletes grow and grow quickly. You got to be cautious that you're not overloading the system and that you're letting them just play on instinct. And I definitely found through my own coaching experience that, making like something big into small, like the best communicators can say the most in the least amount of words. And so I think that's a really big one for me, is learning how to be concise with my communication, because I think you can overload the system if you go too much.
And what is your coaching philosophy?
I think my coaching philosophy is really around just belief and care. How can I help my athletes and how can I have impact? I've always been in the PT space, coaching space, player space, and it's what impact can you have on another person's life? And if you can make that be as positive and help them grow, I think that's probably the big one for me is like, what's my impact on them? Can I instill care, belief, and can I grow them so that they can just reach their full potential? It's really a sense of empowerment, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's so important. It's just the sense of belief and, again, trust, and just creating a safe environment where young females particularly feel seen and heard and want to keep coming back, because at the end of the day, the stat still is that young girls around the 14 to 15 age group are dropping out twice the rate of boys. So the more that we can sort of perpetuate this inclusive, fun and welcoming culture from the top, from coaches and also from the bottom up, it's just going to see that stat slowly hopefully decline over the next few years.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like the infrastructure around that as well. I mean, we haven't really spoken anything about that, but I think that at the moment, like AFL particularly, we've got these weird oval shaped grounds in weird locations around Australia that were designed to have one team play on them on a Saturday. We now have Colts, Futures, our Waffle W team, our Rogers girls, like we've got 5 or 6 teams all fighting for the same location. And so I definitely think, particularly in AFL, there needs to be more infrastructure put around that so that we have high quality venues for both grades at all age levels.
And do you think that plays a big role in injury, especially with your S&C background?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can only speak from my own experience, but we were out at basically a park last year and it had dodgy lights and the turf wasn't that great. And then this year, our women's program's come back to South Freo under lights, main, oval. And it's definitely just brought so much back to the girls' program. Yeah, I mean, injuries are a tough one because you can never prevent them. But I definitely think having the facilities around it for particularly turf management is really important. Obviously, the ACL rates are a lot higher. And so having turf that is ready for those demands and the demands of AFL sport is really important too.
So on the more systemic level, besides facilities, what are some other areas that need focus on to be able to promote women's sport?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I was having a think about it. I think if you want primetime attendance and viewership and membership, you need primetime slots at primetime locations. I don't know if this is the best time to start the AFLW season. You think I can just look at the weekend. We had round 18, so important in the men's competition. We've then got Waffle Grand Final on over here in WA. So a lot of the state leagues have got their finals. And then you've got community sport as well. So now you've got basically 4 or 5 teams that your fan base is getting dispatched across and that they can't get to all of them, the timing and the location. And it's really tough because, do you make it standalone in its own right, or do you piggyback off and make it a whole club theme where you've got, your VFL, AFLW and AFL all playing on the one day and getting your whole fan base there? I'm not 100% sure, but I think that the scheduling needs to be thought of, but it also comes back to the infrastructure too. I think if there's better grounds or some of these state league grounds can improve their capacity to hold, like a national level competition, particularly at better times, then I feel like that might flow into the fixturing as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there would be so much more potential to have everyone play at the same time. And it also kind of makes sense from a resourcing perspective as well. And even, we've got the VFL in its own, own slot and AFLW in its other slot. We sort of don't have that reserve grade for AFLW for girls who are getting injured to still be able to play at a lower grade, and vice versa for the girls in the state leagues who are absolutely killing it. There's nowhere or room for them to go up and to progress. So I think there definitely is an opportunity missed there. And also just from a fan perspective, as you say, the AFL season finishes, there's sort of this fatigue and we've got to start a new AFLW season, and it would just make so much more sense to be able to go down to a park at say 2 p.m. and just be able to watch the men's and women's, and not to say that women always have to be the curtain raiser, but that could change between the two clubs and really just make it a more holistic experience and convenient for both players, staff, and for the fans.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. The best days that we've had here at South Fremantle is like a super footy day where it's been Colts, reserves, seniors and women's, and those time slots will change throughout the year. So it's not always the men playing at the 2:00 time slot. They might push back to a twilight, or the girls might come forward. And those days have been so successful because everyone just gets down, stays for the day, stays for the evening. And I think whilst the girls' game is growing at the state league level, having those curtain raisers or having them piggyback off the male competition, it actually invites viewers in to watch the game that might not otherwise. And when they watch, I've had so many people come up to me and just say, whoa, like they have improved so much. Like it was a really good brand of footy. And all of a sudden, when it does become standalone, you might get a few of those supporters that come and get down because they've seen the product. A lot of the time people will comment on the product of the game, but they don't actually go out and watch it. And so when you spend time away from it and you come to it, you can see that there's a really big difference. And I think now you're starting to see a lot more supporters keen to go and support, provided that the fixturing is not clashing with other competitions as well.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I guess from a more individual level, what is something that we can all do today to promote women's sport, but more so from a male perspective?
Get involved. I feel like there's so much knowledge, particularly with the AFLW in its infancy or now starting to really progress and grow, there's so many males that could come across and provide so much information and be a wealth of knowledge and provide impact. And I think so that's the big one is if you're a male and maybe you've finished up your career or you're not involved, go down and get involved because the relationships that you form are so rewarding. I honestly enjoy coaching probably more now than I do actually playing because there's so much reward seeing other people progress and grow.
And I've heard from a lot of male coaches who have coached boys or men who have transitioned into the female space. And they said that they would never go back to men because females are just like sponges. They just want to learn so much more. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, definitely. And just like the respect that's given, I feel like in the men's program, there is a lot more egos and it really is, who are you? Like, what's your background? If you've played AFL, I'll listen to you. Whereas I've never had any of that with the girls. All they want to know is that I care about them and that I can help them get better and grow. And so once that care was there and they knew that I had the information to be able to help them, it's just so rewarding to see them be those sponges and then see them grow and implement it. I think you can have a greater impact in the female space now than potentially you can in the male space. And that's what's most rewarding is seeing those girls grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And they are growing at such an incredible rate, like 10 seasons into AFLW, and it's almost a completely different brand than when it started.
Yeah, definitely. And we see that now even at the state level as well. It's flowing all the way down to community footy. We're having the first lot of girls come through our sort of talent pathways that have played footy since they were 5 or 6 years old. And so the level is just going to continue to increase. And I think the product is going to eventually get to something that is really awesome to watch. And I'm excited to be a part of that in the female space. And it's so great to see girls getting the opportunities at the AFLW level that have had that dream since they were 5 or 6. But as we've spoken about, it's only going to get tougher and tougher as well. And so with that comes all of those things that we've spoken about today around the pressures, around climbing that ladder and getting to the elite level.
In wrapping up, what would you tell a young 16-year-old girl who is struggling with the pressure from her parents or her coach?
I think have a conversation with them. I think, that's probably the biggest one is like I spoke about with my old man, he probably wasn't self-aware until someone came up to him and actually said, hey, maybe you're being a little bit too harsh on him. So I think that starting the conversation is the biggest one and letting them know how you feel and how that makes you feel and how you feel like it impacts your performance. Because once they become a little bit more self-aware, I think you can then start to put some strategies in place to change the behavior.
Yeah, self-awareness is key in so many areas, that is for sure. But tell us a little bit now about what you're doing with the top tier footballer, what programs you've got on offer, and if someone wants to reach out to you, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, definitely through my social media handles at the top tier footballer. Recently launched my AFL Sports Journal, which has been fantastic to get that out into over 200 hands of athletes from all across Australia now. I still do my strength and conditioning online with my top tier footballer program as well. But at the moment, I'm sort of, jack of all trades. I'm just trying to create as much impact as I can for as many players as possible. And so if that means it's more on the mindset side of things, if it's more in the S&C, if it's more in the coaching, I try and go between the three as much as I can, because it's all about making impact for the future.
Yeah. And you have kindly offered a 25% discount code on your programs and merch, I believe, for 4TG listeners.
Yes, definitely hop on board. So I'm sure you'll list the code down below.
Yeah. So use 4TG for the code, but I will plug all of that in the show notes. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for being so vulnerable and your insights. And I think it's so important to hear conversations like this from people like yourself who have reached the highest points and have so much experience across all different levels. And just to parents and coaches listening today, I think the key message to take home is that you do want the best for your child, but there is a way of going about that. And sometimes you need to let them be the guider of their own journey, and don't put pressure on them in such negative ways. Be self-aware. And if you are someone who notices a parent or a coach putting unnecessary pressure on an athlete, call them out, have that conversation, because it can be crippling for the athlete and they will carry that with them in their life.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've nailed it there. That's a great summary.
Brilliant. All right. Well, if this episode has resonated with you, please be sure to share it, like and subscribe to 4TG on all your podcast platforms, and tag 4TG_podcast on socials. Also be sure to jump into episode 3 with Fee Sanford on how to overcome perfectionism and burnout, and episode 5 with Denny Kennedy on mindset. Robbie Turnbull, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.